Good morning, dear friends. Today we're going to talk about real estate and real estate in New York. New York is going through a lot of changes right now, and it will be very interesting to hear it from the first hand what's happening. And for that, I invited a great friend of mine, Stephen Halpern. He is the head of Halpern team at Compass. Has been in real estate for quite some time, and we're going to talk to him about his path and what's really happening in New York. Give me 1 second. Don't forget to send questions if you have any. Well, hello.
Hello.
So good to see you.
You too. Look at that smile.
Look at those glasses.
Exactly. It's all me.
I know.
Hello.
How you been?
I've been good. And you?
Sunny California cannot be better.
Oh, well,
I
It's
know.
actually quite lovely in New York right now.
How it can be lovely.
It's quiet,
Okay. No,
which
I'm
we're not
kidding. I
used
love
to.
New York, of course.
And it's also, all the restaurants now have taken over the
Right.
parking spaces, so everyone is eating outside. I don't know. I find it
Because it
quite
looks
lovely.
like you're very European city at this point,
It feels
right?
like Europe. I actually,
Yeah.
I was on a FaceTime call with an Italian client, and he was like, I was walking through the West Village, and he was like, that feels very much like, like Venice.
Definitely. Definitely.
I was like, but it's nice.
Steve, talk to me a little bit. How did you get into real estate? How did you, being
So,
a
sure.
successful musician, music producer, end up selling, quite successfully selling New York real estate?
So I think I kind of feel the skills that to be successful in the music industry kind of are very similar to the real estate world, but the music business when I was in it in the really like the early 2000s, it just was starting to become really, really, really complicated to earn a living because people stopped basically paying for music anymore. It
Okay.
became more about streaming, a lot more about at that time there wasn't streaming, there was just people were stealing music, all that stuff. So at a point, it was around 2008, late 2007, early 2008, when all the markets were crashing. I was working for a audiovisual company at the time, which was the job that I had while I was. Sometimes I'd be on tour and I'd come back and work as an AV guy. And my boss at the time laid me off, and
So
I
you
was
had
like,
something to eat. You had to find something to eat
yeah,
in
I
time.
had a few months of being on unemployment, and I was like, now's my time to sort of find something else. And it's a little bit of a lame story in the fact that I was at home. I was watching Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles,
Really?
which was the only one that was on at that time. And uh, my girlfriend at the time was like, you'd be really good at that.
Really? How interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I really had a moment where I was like, wait a second, that could be it. And I started having flashbacks of, I moved around a lot as a kid. My parents like to change up the scenery always. And I remember every time they wanted to, look at apartments, I would always get really excited and go and really be excited about going out. So I was like, oh, interesting. So I signed up for classes, and, I
And the rest
started
is
in
history.
2009. I started in 2009, and it was a terrible time in New York real estate. But I figured if I could make it during the worst markets, then I'd probably be good.
Mhm.
And that's really sort of, and the rest is a little, a lot
It's a
more
history.
history.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was kind of the catalyst. The
Hmm.
catalyst was a corny TV show, and
Here we
uh,
are.
and then 4 years later, I was on the show.
Oh, you were in the show? I'm
Yes,
not surprised, to be honest.
yes.
What do you like about real estate? What do you like? Why are you doing this? Why did you stay?
Well, I love the people. I mean, really, more than anything, it's the I've always been a relationship person, even in music. Uh, I love really getting to. I love helping people more than anything, and to be paid to do something that really helps people to develop really strong relationships with people is really just an inspiration and really like serves my, what my heart, where my heart is. I mean, that's how we met, right? I mean,
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
going that extra mile for people and really establishing a really great relationship, and then using that as really the driver to work really, really hard for them. And then to get a nice paycheck at the end of it is also another great value, you know.
Absolutely.
And then also the idea that using my creative talents for, which I feel like, that you don't find as many creative people in our industry. And I think, so having that creative skill is also something that really inspires me. Being able to do something unique and inspiring for people is something that I need to do.
Of
Yeah.
course. And you're doing this great.
Thank
Uh,
you.
tell me what's going on in New York right now. I heard that
It's not
uh,
great.
in New
It's
York Times they even mentioned they're saying that it's lower than it ever was in the last 30 years.
Well, so I feel like relying on the media at ever for anything in regards to, they're always looking for stories,
Right.
but what you have right now is it's a really interesting time because we were shut down for about 4 months where we could
Right.
not show properties legally, right? So the result of that was about 80% of the people who were trying to sell decided to pull their properties off the market. So you then had this pent up demand that was created because there was no inventory. And then they opened everything up. Listings
And
started to
plus,
come listings started to come back on the market, and there was a ton of buyers ready. So activity is crazy, but people are not sure where to make deals. So we have
did the
this
price
moment.
drop?
I have never been busier, to be honest.
Yeah, same here, to be honest. Same here in California.
I have more listings than I've ever had. I have more people inquiring about selling, more people inquiring about buying. But what you have right now is because everybody is unsure what's going to happen next, you don't have people making offers yet. So I believe the next 3 to 6 months will kind of will be sort of like this dance that's happening now.
Ambiguity.
I think after 6 months, we're going to have about a year of a really, really tough market. I think when the winter starts to come and everybody's sort of forced back inside and what happens with schools happens, I think it's going to be, but the one thing about New York City is that we have a lot of people leaving. That's going to be
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
going to be a short thing. I think it's maybe a year or two that's going to happen. And people who are smart, who have money, are going to start to buy when the market is low in the winter. So,
Right, right.
that's what I think.
Absolutely. Hmm.
But I'm always an optimist. I always think about, but we're seeing deals happening now at around 10 to 15% below what they were happening for before.
Okay, so the price dropped it like 15% off?
It's about between 10 and 15, depending on the price point. The
Uh-huh.
higher end is hurting very bad.
Right.
Anything
And
below, like between 2 million and below, is still pretty strong. We're seeing about a 5 or 6% reduction, which is pretty okay
of course,
considering how strong the market was before.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Is that
And
the
then
same thing?
Brooklyn,
That's
yeah,
what I want
sorry.
to
And
ask. Is
then,
the same thing
yeah,
for Brooklyn?
Brooklyn is much busier and much more transactions happening in Brooklyn than there are in comparison in Manhattan.
Why you
So
think that's happening like that?
there's more space. People get more space. I think the idea of more, there's less of these crazy tall towers. That we're seeing more people leaning more towards smaller boutique type of buildings, townhouses, things with outdoor space. Where the idea of living in a 60 floor tower and you have
With
to share
tons
the
of
elevator
people,
with,
absolutely.
yeah, where you have to share the elevator with, 20 people at a time, or you have to wait because what they're doing is they're limiting the amount of people they allow in the elevators. So you end up having to wait for 3 or 4 elevators. But I'm also seeing some deals in those types of buildings too. I just put something into contract on 84th Street between 3rd and Lexington. And we had a deal in place before COVID started. That buyer ended up not following through with the transaction. And then we relaunched it about 2 weeks before we were able to show. And we were able to create a bidding war, and we got more money afterwards than
Excellent.
we got
Wow.
before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What is
So
the situation with rentals?
rentals is horrible. I mean, it's the
Really?
worst it's ever been, ever. So basically, what we're looking at right now is normally around this time there's around 10,000 apartments available.
Mm-hmm.
We have over 20,000 on the market now, and we're seeing only about 20 to 25% of the volume of transactions happening right now. So the rental world is
Going down.
very poor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody's moving into New York. That's all,
Yes.
and then larger families are moving out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't think that's going to get fixed I think that's going to be at least a year worth of inventory available right now.
What's the situation with mortgages? Is it hard to get?
They have changed. So for what I'm seeing, most of now that appraisals can happen during the whole like the shutdowns, it was very bad. Banks were changing the loan to value ratios that they were willing to accept. They were no longer taking 20% down payments. They were requiring 30% down payments, and they were doing that because they didn't have enough information to get things so they needed to protect themselves. We're seeing a little bit more rigidity now, but not as bad as it was. Uh, where the real problem is coming in is timelines, as well as any types of contingencies for mortgages. It's just to get to the closing line, the closing table is a lot harder and taking a lot longer. So you really, I always say this: having a good broker and someone who can really maneuver you through the challenges is
Yes.
really important. I think a lot of people think that somehow not having good representation will get them a better deal somehow.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, you're making a major mistake not having somebody. I had a deal that closed on Thursday, and the deal was on paper a cash deal, but they were getting financing, but there was no contingencies, and we had to delay the closing for about 4 months in order to get it to close. And if we would not have been involved in the transaction, there is no way that it would have
It only
closed.
happened. Mm-hmm.
We had to, everybody got emotionally involved. No, they said this, that, and
Right.
it would have ended up in court.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I heard there is a lot of bankruptcies is happening as well. Some buildings, major buildings, some bankrupts. So they're selling those buildings.
I'm not really sure of that. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe I would not be surprised. A lot of these
Mm-hmm.
buildings run at, commercial buildings are in trouble right now for sure, because, even major companies are not paying their rent.
Mm.
I believe to me, I think the result of all of that's going to be the hardest hit area, because I don't know that people are actually ever going to come back to being in the office the way that they were.
That's
I
gonna be
don't know
hard.
in New York, like we're at Compass, we have a lot of we have a large footprint in commercial space, and even we're hedging and becoming, because people are understanding that they can be pretty effective and pretty effective working from home. So I don't know that I think this is going to change the entire flow of the way
Absolutely.
companies
That's
work. Yeah,
that's how it feels. That's how it
yeah.
feels. So that
And
was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. What do you think? What is the future for New York? Is it going to be some kind of like uh, monuments of history. That's why people will go and buy some kind of trophy apartment just to have like cherry on the pie of their successful careers. But it's not going to be really active city as we know.
You know, to me, everything's going to change once there's some type of finality element here. I feel like, you know, when you look at the trajectory of everything that's happening in regards to, you know, we got hit so early as the epicenter, so everybody reacted. The amount of people I was speaking to during those moments who were acting like it was like a zombie movie in New York, right? That like everybody was walking around with like foaming at the mouth, giving everybody the, you know, this virus. That's the way people were communicating to me. Like, how is it out there? And I was like, it's New York City. Are you kidding me? Like every
Yeah, I know, it's the bravest. The
well, it's
bravest
not
place
even
in
just the
New York.
braveness. It's got everything. Culturally, we have everything. It's this, you know, maybe you fight with me about about LA, but like I think New
Oh, New
York is
York is
probably the most
super life, super,
yeah, the most famous place in the world,
the
right?
most courageous are live there. Yeah, I
Right.
would say
So
so.
so once there's some type of finality and there's some type of understanding of what's going to happen, it may take a little bit of time, but it's all going to come back. This is not, I believe, that's what I believe. And that's not just optimism. That's understanding what's happening now is people are leaving for the suburbs because they just don't know what's going to happen. And most people, what most people are doing is they're buying in secondary markets. They're buying in places where they can have a second home and keeping their homes in New York. They're not selling them off. We're not seeing a massive sell-off. That's one of the challenges we have is we don't have as many transactions happening, but we also don't have as much inventory as we normally have. So people are buying in second markets, waiting to see what happens. They're not selling their homes in New York. They're going to come back. They're going to
That's
come
why they're
back.
trying to. That's why they're trying to rent them, and that's why you have so many proposals of rent.
You know, maybe I think it's more just that nobody's renting. I mean, when you have 6 months of basically no rentals,
Right.
the inventory is gonna keep growing. You know, so I mean, I'd love to talk to you in 6 months from now because I think everything's gonna be completely different. I think we and maybe it's reflective here because we were so early hit. Maybe we're going to start seeing in the rest of the country, other people have similar responses now that they're becoming more, you know, having much more COVID deaths, you know, COVID related things. Maybe we're just sort of the way it was beforehand.
Interesting times we live, definitely. And then
But
we
I'll
have
tell you, there are a
elections
lot of, you know,
coming.
yeah, go ahead, please.
And then we have elections coming. So like,
But I believe that's all part of this whole thing. I think that's all
absolutely.
part of it's all part of where's the economy going to be? Where's you know there's so much happening. I think generally, if you ever look at New York cycles around the election eras, things kind of dip always.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like to make big financial decisions, and it's a different thing when you're you know when you're in Atlanta and you're buying a you know a large home for $1 million, right? That's much less risky than you know being in New York and spending $3 or $4 million on a home. So I think even though they both have their benefits and they both have their reasons why it makes sense to do that, I just feel like it's a larger purchase, so people are more cautious about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
again, I have my own political beliefs, which I don't think we should go into, but but I did, you know.
I wouldn't mind, but you know how people react now.
I know they're all gonna hate me. I'm from Brooklyn. I mean, you could assume how I feel.
Okay, let's not go there.
Okay, I love it.
Oh my God. So, prices will drop next probably 6 months, right?
So what I'm communicating to sellers as I sit down with them now is I say, and again, maybe I'm being a little aggressive with it, but I think it's important that we're over aggressive with communication when it comes to this time, a little bit. I'm saying to people, you're looking at maybe between 85 and 90% of value now, and then I think next year we're looking at between 75 and 80%. So I
Wow.
believe there'll be an additional at least 10 to 15% drop for a period of time.
Hmm. So it's soon it's going to be a good time to buy.
That's exactly. I have a few foreign investors that I work with, and we've worked a few of the real estate cycles in New York already. So purchased at the bottom, sold at the top, and I'm telling people to let's collect your money. Collect your money, hold it, because there's going to be a really amazing, opportune moment.
But
And
what about that with everything that with economical crisis and the big possibility that money won't be as strong as dollar won't be strong as it is, then it's best, what is the best to invest in? It's obviously real estate.
exactly, asset, having a
So it's,
physical asset. Yep.
yeah, it's kind of like
Well,
very sensitive time at the same time.
when if you look at the entire trajectory of New York City, there's never been a period of 5 years, over 5 years, that there hasn't been money been made on properties. I don't care the height or the low, or the height or the low is always after 5 years you earn your money back with profit. So
Right. So just sit tight.
it's just buying in New York City. I mean, I don't know anybody who's betting against New York.
Mhm.
I know people are talking about it. I know people are, oh, it's going to be a ghost town and nobody's going to be around. I mean, yes, I think the future is going to be tough, because I think the restaurateurs and the bars and all the venues and all the places where people go to gather, they hold out. So we're going to lose a lot. We're going to lose a lot of our institutional elements, but I believe it'll be back in some format.
Right. I had an interview with a good friend of mine. She's the head of Sotheby's in Paris, and
Right,
she was telling me pretty much the same thing. There is still a lot of people interested. Some people moved out, definitely from the city, but
right.
maybe New York will become some kind of like Paris. So it's a name. It's not going to vanish. The name of New York,
No.
definitely. So it still will be very attractive.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people who want to be in New York who've always talked about living in New York. I think when you look at what happens in history, when there are tragedies or health crisis, people make transitions. People take risks in different ways, because the value of their life is different than just everyday movement. And the amount of people who have little kid when they were little kids watch movies and always wanted to
Yeah.
live in New York. I just, when the fear goes away of getting, again, the fear of getting this virus is driving a lot of people's decisions. And I
Yeah.
just, I don't feel that people living in small town America who would want to live in New York are suddenly going to be like, no, I'm not going to move to New York.
Yeah. I know. I know. I
You
don't
know,
believe that either. I remember I had a lot of clients who will be shopping for real estate building for real estate in Park Avenue, and for them it will be like some kind of, I had a successful career. Now I
right,
can buy this apartment in Park Avenue, and it's people from all over United States. For foreigners, it will be more about Central Park, right?
right.
They love
Well,
this area. Nothing going to happen Central Park for sure. So this area will still be
yeah.
very,
Once they could fly here,
yeah.
I think they're going to buy here. I mean, I think it's,
That's is my next question, and I wanted to ask you. So this virtual world, how does it work for you? Does it really sell? Can you buy? Do you know a lot of people who bought through just seeing it on the internet?
you know, so what I don't believe they're, uh, I mean, I actually did sell an apartment through a Zoom tour. It was almost $3 million apartment, and I was very shocked that we were
And they never saw it.
They ended up seeing it later, but they had already made an offer. Contract was out. So. But my feeling, I feel the effect of the virtual tours and everything. What I believe it's doing is, I don't believe people used to spend a lot of time looking at real estate, going out, pursuing and seeing things. I think the virtual experience, what it's changing is people are doing a lot more homework up front. I think they're want more information, and then they're still going to go and look. But I think they're only going to look. They're going to, where they might have looked at 25 or 30 properties before it. Now they're going to look at 5, right? They're going to. So I believe not doing some type of virtual elements is a mistake. But I also, I feel our jobs as real estate agents and listing agents specifically are to do what's necessary to get people into the door. And sometimes giving that much information is not the best thing to get people in the door, right? Absolutely. So I'm only doing it on some properties. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that people are going to purchase multi-million-dollar real estate through a video.
That's my feeling as well. Even though I hear there is some areas in the United States where it's kind of popular. Like I heard in Pennsylvania, it's popular when it's not that probably.
It's not that expensive. It's not as expensive. I think when someone is spending a few $100,000 on a home as opposed to a few $1 million.
And it's not their last 200, 300,000.
Right. Yeah. And also, when I think about some of the like trophy properties in California and some of the trophy properties in New York, people buy sometimes off of a floor plan, right?
Right.
But the reason they're doing that is it's a status level, right? 2, it's the players involved in the development, so they have enough information.
Yeah, there were.
I believe those people could. Yeah, I think those people will still purchase potentially virtually, because they're going to get an even better deal now than they would have gotten beforehand, right? So, but I think if I have a listing that was built in the 80s and somebody is looking now, and I don't see how anybody would at that point. The mentality of it just doesn't seem to be something. The only person that might consider doing that is someone who's looking to steal an apartment.
Something to their portfolio, right?
Yeah, it's somebody trying to steal it, and then it's about the numbers, and that I can see.
Right. No, to me as well. That's why I've been in my experience buying real estate. It's still very emotional purchase. Yeah. Besides numbers, I would say probably like 80% it's emotional. It's still emotional. Even the
investors,
traders. Yeah. Absolutely.
All of my investors still have to love the property. They still have to find something that they connect to. The other thing I will mention is that people's desire for something that's turnkey and ready to move in it's so much higher than it's ever been. People's desire to do any type of renovation right now, it's really so get any listing that I have that needs any work.
It's hard
I'm trying to convince the sellers to do more up front, because they're going to lose quite a multiple of that listing price, because people are always gonna a $50,000 renovation. They're gonna want $200,000-$300,000 off the price, and that's what I'm seeing. So anything that I get that is ready to go, that's brand new, that looks amazing, I'm selling in a second.
Yeah, that's why in the same situation here in California. It's the same.
Yeah.
People just want to move in with their suitcases, and that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Listen,
but your market is pretty strong, right?
I mean, California is booming. It's bloom. Everything from our lenders, they saying that they have like 90% of higher demands of loans than they had last year. 90%. So it's like wow.
Wow, and then also refinances, because the interest rate is so low. I mean,
fantastic.
I think for anybody who has the stomach for dealing with a little bit of risk, it's an amazing moment for them.
For sure.
Well, here. Call me.
Okay, I hear you. Stu, thank you so so much. That was
You're
very
welcome.
informative. And
Thank you so much for having me, and
let's
it's
do
nice
more
to see your
business
face.
together. Yep. Yep.
Definitely.
Talk to you
Awesome.
very soon.
See you soon.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye. Bye. Thank you guys for watching. That was Stephen Halpern from New York, broker from New York. Let me know if you have any questions, requests regarding real estate. I can always point you into direction how, when, and for how much to buy. Bye bye, everyone.